Welcome to this presentation which explores how adaptive teaching can be used to challenge pupils with higher prior attainment in Year 7 science. I will draw on educational literature and classroom evidence to show how specific adaptive teaching strategies supported deeper thinking and conceptual understanding, later reflecting on the impact of these strategies. This inquiry focused on 4 pupils in a Year 7 mixed attainment science class who had been identified as having higher prior attainment. Although all 4 pupils were performing highly, they showed different strengths. Pupil A showed strong analytical reasoning, whereas pupil B was confident in verbal reasoning. Pupil C preferred independent learning, and pupil D approached problems creatively. While these pupils were achieving well, they often completed tasks quickly and needed greater intellectual stretch to sustain engagement. The key question guiding this inquiry was how adaptive teaching could provide meaningful challenge beyond simply giving more work or accelerating content. The literature emphasized that challenge is not about increasing workload or speeding through the curriculum. Flavel highlights the importance of metacognition, which helps pupils plan, monitor, and evaluate their thinking. King emphasizes high-order questioning as a way to deepen reasoning. Addy and Shea argue that cognitive conflict can prompt pupils to reconsider existing ideas. Harlan stresses the importance of conceptual understanding and connecting scientific ideas. Sternberg and Davidson remind us that high-attaining pupils have diverse strengths, and Sweller's cognitive load theory highlights the need to keep challenge manageable. Together, these perspectives suggest that challenge is best understood as deeper thinking and not faster learning. To apply these ideas, I designed a whole class challenge task within the ecosystems topic. Students were shown a food web and asked to consider what might happen if a disease removed foxes from the ecosystem. Rather than seeking a single correct answer, pupils predicted consequences, justified their reasoning, explained relationships within the food web, and considered both short and long-term impacts. This open-ended structure encouraged explanation, prediction, and evaluation, providing an authentic opportunity for higher prior attainment pupils to demonstrate deeper reasoning while remaining accessible to the wider class. Flavel and King both highlight the importance of making thinking visible. To support this, pupils were encouraged to plan their explanations, monitor the quality of their reasoning, and evaluate whether the ideas were scientifically justified. Throughout the discussion, I used prompts such as "How do you know?", "What evidence supports this?" and "What might happen next?" These questions encouraged pupils to explain their thinking rather than simply provide answers. Metacognition and questioning therefore worked together to help pupils become more aware of how they were constructing scientific explanations. Addy and Shea argue that learning develops when pupils encounter ideas that challenge their existing understanding. Initially, several students assumed that only rabbits would be affected by the loss of foxes. Through discussion, they began to recognize wider consequences, including increased competition, changes in population size, and effects across the food web. This shift in thinking reflects the conceptual restructuring described by Addy and Shea. It also aligns with Harlan's emphasis on understanding scientific concepts as interconnected systems. Pupils were required to think about relationships, interdependence, and cause and effect across the ecosystem, rather than recalling isolated facts. Although the task was deliberately challenging, support remained important. Sweller's cognitive load theory suggests that excessive cognitive demand can hinder learning. To manage this, pupils were initially supported with food web diagrams, vocabulary prompts, and structured question stems. As pupils became more confident, these supports were gradually reduced. This allowed them to engage in increasingly complex reasoning while maintaining an appropriate level of challenge. This illustrates the importance of balancing independence with support when designing challenge for higher prior attainment learners. Now on to the observed outcomes. Several positive outcomes emerged. Pupil A connected predator-prey relationships to wider food web stability, showing a more sophisticated understanding of interdependence. Pupil B identified multiple consequences of ecosystem disruption and began evaluating which outcomes were most likely. Pupil C moved beyond factual recall and justified explanations using precise ecological vocabulary. Importantly, they also began checking the strength of their explanations independently, reflecting Flavel's emphasis on monitoring thinking. Pupil D contributed increasingly sophisticated explanations and showed growing confidence during discussion. Collectively, these observations suggest improvements in conceptual understanding, reasoning, and independence, supporting the view that challenge is best achieved through deeper thinking rather than mere curriculum coverage. Tension arises between Sweller and Addy and Shayer's approaches. Sweller warns that excessive cognitive demand can overload working memory, while Addy and Shayer argue that cognitive conflict is essential for intellectual growth. My observations suggest that both perspectives have value. While the tasks successfully challenge higher prior attaining students, some lower attaining pupils required additional support to access the open-ended questions. This shows that some pupils thrive when support is reduced and uncertainty is increased, while others need more scaffolding before they can engage successfully. This reiterates the importance of adaptive teaching and the need to calibrate challenge carefully. True intellectual stretch exists at the boundary of a pupil's zone of proximal development, where cognitive conflict promotes deeper thinking without causing overload. This inquiry has multiple limitations. It focused only on 4 pupils within a single Year 7 class, which limits generalizability. The time frame was short, so long-term impact cannot be assessed. Evidence was primarily qualitative, based on observation, which may reduce reliability. And as both teacher and researcher, my interpretations may have been influenced by personal bias. For these reasons, the findings should be viewed as indicative rather than definitive. This inquiry suggests that meaningful challenge is not achieved through acceleration alone. Instead, challenge emerges when pupils are encouraged to think deeply, justify ideas, connect concepts, and reflect on their thinking. These findings align with the teacher standards, particularly Standard 1, through maintaining high expectations, Standard 2, through promoting progress, Standard 5, through adaptive teaching, and Standard 6, through using assessment to inform instruction. Ongoing formative assessment helped determine when scaffolding could be reduced and when additional support was needed, ensuring challenge remained accessible while still promoting deeper thinking. In conclusion, this inquiry infers that effective challenge for higher prior attainment pupils is not achieved by simply increasing difficulty or moving faster through the curriculum. Instead, challenge emerges through metacognitive development, higher order questioning, cognitive conflict, conceptual understanding, and adaptive teaching. The findings reinforce the view that higher attaining pupils are diverse learners who benefit from different forms of intellectual challenge. And while the task successfully challenged these pupils, some lower attaining pupils required additional scaffolding, highlighting the importance of adaptive teaching for all learners. Ultimately, challenge should be understood not as acceleration, but as the deliberate design of opportunities for deeper thinking, stronger reasoning, and richer conceptual understanding. Thank you for listening.